What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Heath Mullikin Project, the podcast that is designed to help you discover your purpose, your passion, and your possibility. And today we're adding a fourth P, and that is podcasting, because we're talking about that thing you've been wanting to start, that thing you've been wanting to do, but you've been putting it off, you've been putting it off, you've been putting it off, you've been wanting to do a podcast, and 2025 is, or whenever you're watching this, I'm recording this at the end of 2024, and I'm just saying it's time for New Year's resolutions, it's time for goals, it's time for change, it's time for you to start your podcast. Before I get into the nuts and bolts of that, I have talked about this before, why everybody needs a podcast. It is a great outlet, even if no one listens. Podcasting is a great outlet. It gets things out of your head. And so when you're home with your family, you don't have all these things running around in your head. You have dumped them out. You've gotten them out into the ether. You've gotten them out. So you're not pondering at them all the time. For me, one thing that I've had to do is, so right now I have multiple podcast projects in the hopper. I am weekly. I'm a part of the Tapped In Indie Wrestling podcast, which you can find on YouTube. I also record periodically the Double Dropkick Show with Mark Whitman. We record it here in this space. Right now, that's just an audio podcast. It's basically become two middle school guys who grew up together talking about whatever's going on in their life. We've been talking about comic books lately. It's a lot of fun. We've been doing that podcast for 10 years, which is a pretty big deal. The Heath Mullikin Project, which you're watching now, I got set up in my office back in August, and one of the goals was make this podcast central. So I've got my equipment in here. I can set it up, tear it down pretty quickly, pretty easily. But I wanted this to be, I wanted this to be a place where I could record podcasts. I wanted to remove that barrier of doing podcasts. So here we are. I've been recording with the Heath Mullikin Project. I've gone through seasons of inconsistency. So every week the goal is to record 2 episodes, kind of stay a week ahead. And that's kind of what we do. And that's why I said it on the last episode. That's why, I think he's wearing the same thing this week, because I'm recording multiple episodes at a time. I'm also in 2025, we are relaunching the Youth Camp Stories podcast and the Sioux Soul Stories podcast. Again, we've got these spaces. Youth Camp Stories is gonna be more interviews in that. I'm hoping that will be maybe a monthly podcast or bi-weekly. I don't think it will be a weekly podcast. Sioux Soul Stories hoping to make that a weekly podcast. So one great thing that has happened, okay, that I realized by mistake, you can now I think you can do everything from your phone. I record these either on my phone or on a camera. I do edit them in Final Cut Pro on my Mac, and then I upload them a couple of places. I upload them to Spotify, then I upload them to YouTube. I upload them to Facebook as well. Here's the thing, though. If you create an account on Spotify for creators, if you do a video, when you upload the video to Spotify, I don't think it always did this, because you used to have to upload both, a video and audio, but now you don't. If you upload the video, if you've set up your account, it will pull the audio from that and feed Apple Podcasts and feed all the different podcast apps that you have set up in your Spotify for Creators account. So if you record your podcast, if I'm recording this on my phone, if you record it, I think you can upload this video straight into Spotify for creators, and then it's super easy to set up. It's super easy. Now, a lot of people, most of the people that talk about it, the platform used to be called Anchor, and the knock on Anchor was, well, it's free, and so you don't have total control, and it's really owned by Spotify, and you don't know if it's going to be here forever. And most of the people that said that were people who offered paid podcasting services. Now, having said that, for the Double Dropkick Show from day one, we have used a paid podcasting service. Do we use, do we use all the bells and whistles we get from that? No, not anymore. I used to worry about who was listening and what countries they were listening for. And oh man, we've got listeners in Ireland and Germany, and man, we've got people, either it's a Russian spy or somebody's listening to us in Russia and Brazil, and I was I was like, every day I was checking our download. Oh, we got this many. And like, now I don't care. Like, I'm recording this for me, and if nobody listens to it, I'm getting it out of my head, like I said at the beginning. So what I'm saying to you is, if you had ever thought about starting the podcast or starting a podcast, now is the time. Now is the time. You have your phone. Now, the one thing that I don't like is when they did have the Anchor app, you could actually edit your podcast in Anchor. You could add intro music, outro music. You could do all sorts of things. That's no longer available just in the app. But it's super easy. You could record a video on your phone, Android or Apple. Even if you can't upload it in the app, you upload it to Google Drive. You get on your computer. You go to your Google Drive, you download that video. You upload that video via your computer to Spotify for creators. Bada boom, bada bing. It's so easy. I hope you hear what I'm saying. You have been making excuses about why you can't do a podcast. Let me break it down. Let me break some news to you. You are not going to be the next Joe Rogan. You're not. You're not going to get 100,000 listeners. You're not going to get rich off of this. It is going to be hard. It is going to be some work. But it's not as much work as it was when we first started 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I had to pay. I paid and set up a website. I still pay for that website every year. Paid for a domain name. It was a lot of work. The Double Dropkick Show is basically run through our WordPress blog. So for that podcast to keep going, for me to upload an episode, I have to upload it to our hosting site, which is Blueberry, which they're great. I would say they are the number one. For me, a lot of people use Libsyn or Podbean. To me, the Blueberry integration into WordPress, that is 100% the way to go if that's how you're doing it. But if you're just looking to do it for free, that's the thing. People who can come up with excuses are going to come up with excuses. And you got to decide in 2025. You have to decide if you're going to make progress or you're going to make excuses. I talked about this on the last episode. You got to decide. And here's another thing to think about with podcasting. If I got hit by a train tomorrow, and something happened to me, and, my kids had kids, and my grandkids were like, I really don't know a lot about my grandfather. Well, Here's a podcast. You can listen to him talk about his life, and you can hear his voice, and you can see his face, and you can get to know him through this medium. Podcasting, blogging, all of that has given us this wonderful opportunity to essentially archive our lives. To archive our lives, to put our lives up in the cloud. You don't have a lot of, we don't have as many photo albums sitting around our house. We don't have tapes. Something I wish I could find, my uncle, when he was a teenager, put a tape recorder. It was Thanksgiving or Christmas, and he had a tape recorder at the table. He hid it. And we found these tapes one year and we were listening to them, and you heard, they just called him Uncle Roy. And all these people that I did not have a lot of memories of, but you could hear their voices and you could hear them talking. And it's just table talk. It's not anything profound. What's profound is that you're hearing their voices. These people there's no recording of that. Imagine this. Like, I think about somebody like, Abraham Lincoln. We don't have. We have a lot of his written words, but we don't have his voice. We don't have videos of him. And I'm like, do this for yourself. Do this to there's been times I've gone back and listened to podcasts. And matter of fact, holy cow. I'm recording this on December the 19th. And I believe the first episode of this podcast launched on December 18th, 2018. It was around that time. Because it was about a month before Karen passed away. And I've gone back and listened to some of these podcasts. And I'm reminded of where I was mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It's almost like you relive that moment, and then you kind of see how far you've come from there. For me, podcasting is about leaving breadcrumbs. Sometimes I go back and listen, and I'm reminded of things I've said and things I've set out to do that I didn't do. And I'm reminded that I still got time. That these things that I want to do, these things I want to accomplish, I still have the opportunity to do that. So it's not a sense of, beating up on myself. And then there's been times I've gone back and listened, like, man, who is that guy? That guy, man, somebody needs to give that guy a hug. Or I wish that guy could give me a hug. So I've said it for a long time. Everybody should have a podcast. Not to be an influencer, but as a digital diary of your thoughts on the world and what's going on in your life. So whenever you're listening to this, or whoever you are, I would love to help you wherever you're listening to this. Heath.mullikin@gmail.com. That's the email. You can message me on social media. What's it going to take for you to get started? Getting started is the hardest part. And then after that, it's a grind. It's hard. As you can recognize from my seasons of inconsistency. But, seasons of inconsistency are not necessarily the end. So just want to encourage you that if you've been putting something off, podcasting, blogging, writing a book, asking someone out, telling someone you love them, losing weight, asking for a raise, chasing your dream, chasing the lion, whatever it is, I think we've created New Year's as this. Okay, this is when we'll do it. Here's the thing. New Year's is every day. Every day you can start something. You don't have to wait for this magical flip of the calendar. Every day is New Year's Day. You can start every single day. And so, what is stopping you? Make excuses or make progress. That's my motto. That's my motto moving forward. Make excuses or make progress. What are you going to do? I tell you what you can do. You can leave us a review and a rating on Spotify and Apple. You can share this. Tell a friend, Telegram, tell a wrestler about this podcast if it's been meaningful to you, if it's been helpful. And hey, maybe you need that nudge to do whatever it is you need to be doing. And you need somebody to come alongside you and be like, you can do this. You're good enough, smart enough, doggone it, people like you. You can do this. I will be that guy for you. I will be that person to encourage you, to cheer you on, to tell you that sometimes the hardest step is the next step. And you just got to take it. You just got to jump. You just got to do it. So thanks for listening. Again, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year if you're listening to this around those times of year. If not, just have a great day, and we'll see you soon.